Alright guys, so if I asked people in the Formula 1 community for some of the fastest and greatest drivers in their opinions, names like Schumacher, Hamilton, Senna, Clark, Vettel and Alonso would be quick to come up. So I decided to actually go on a couple of different sites and forums to do a bit of research to see what people thought. And I was right. Most of the times you see the same handful of names. Of course, the drivers mentioned deserve to be mentioned because more often than not, they were world class, the best of the best. But what I found to be quite interesting was that one name in particular rarely appeared that I think should have been there more often. And that name is Kimi Raikkonen. If you've been following Formula 1 for a while, you most definitely heard of the 2007 world champ. Last season, he retired from the sport at the age of 42, but of course, as per usual for a retiring F1 driver, his career wasn't going near as well as it used to be back in the day. In 2019, Kimi made the move from Ferrari to the Sauber Formula 1 team, known currently as Alfa Romeo, the same team he made his debut with back in 2001. Now, Sauber have always been known for being an extremely meh team. They've never gotten near the championship trophy, and as a team, they have a total of 0 wins under their belt. While in his final years in Formula 1, Kimi was known for treating the sport like a hobby. He said so himself. So as you could imagine, Kimi's last couple of seasons were extremely underwhelming. But I think because of that, and a couple more reasons we'll discuss, a lot of fans have forgotten why Kimi Raikkonen has been such a prominent name in the sport. Not because of his funny interviews, not because of his age, but because he was damn good. It's almost as if people have forgotten about his stint with McLaren, or the fact that he's still Ferrari's last world champion, but we'll get into those in a little bit. Kimi entered F1 in a really controversial fashion back in 01, straight out of Formula Renault 2.0. You could understand why a lot of people weren't necessarily on board with this idea. An inexperienced driver entering straight from a beginner's single-seater category? That was borderline unheard of. But with no rules against it, Peter Sauber brought Kimi on board the Sauber team. And just like that, Raikkonen stunned the paddock when he helped Sauber achieve 4th in the Constructors' Championship, their highest Constructors finish ever. And yeah, sure, Raikkonen was beaten by Nick Heidfeld, but only by 3 points. For his first season, that wasn't bad at all. In fact, it was really good. So good that it landed him a deal with McLaren for the 2002 season. Now, usually that would be a good thing, but in 2002, McLaren just so happened to make the most unreliable car in freaking history. Okay, I'm not sure that's actually a fact, but it may as well be. In 2002, Raikkonen only managed to finish 6 out of the 17 races that season. Yes, he retired from 11 races. Sure, some weren't necessarily the car's fault, but still, that number is ridiculous. Even then, Kimi managed to place 6th in the championship that season. He was beaten by David Coulthard, quite significantly at that, but Coulthard didn't suffer near the amount of DNS as Raikkonen. So again, as bad as the season was for Kimi, he did well with what he was given. But then 2003 came around, and oh boy, it was wild. This season for Kimi is, in my opinion, what 2012 was for Fernando Alonso, his best season to date. The Finn in his 3rd season in the sport took the battle to the great Michael Schumacher during his domination period with Ferrari and almost came out on top. This was the first real challenge Ferrari had been faced with for a little while, and the fact that Raikkonen was able to take Schumacher in his prime in his 3rd season in the sport after coming straight from Formula Renault is one of the reasons why I consider him to be one of the very best. He ended up losing the title by 3 points, but the fact that he was in the position he was in, only 3 seasons into the sport as the most unexperienced driver, was already an achievement in itself. Not many drivers can say they've done that. He truly gave Schumacher and Ferrari a run for their money at their peak, a time where they looked invincible, and the only person who seemed like they could put a dent in their perfect little record was this man right here, Kimi Raikkonen. 2004 was yet another terrible season for McLaren, so because of that, also a bad year for Kimi. But then came 2005, the year Fernando Alonso won his first world championship. But that wouldn't have been the case had Raikkonen had a more reliable car. Kimi was the embodiment of speed back in 05 in that McLaren. But the car ended up being a little too fragile for anybody's liking, and that ended up costing Raikkonen the title. He absolutely destroyed his teammate Juan Pablo Montoya in terms of points, but definitely take into account that Montoya did retire 2 more times than Raikkonen that season. Some say that 2005 was Kimi's greatest season. I personally don't see it that way myself. That McLaren was easily the quickest car on the grid. Yes, Raikkonen extracted 100% out of it, which of course is always impressive no matter the driver, but personally, I still find 2003 to be his superior year. He did more with a lesser car and against Michael Schumacher in his prime. Sure, I believe that Alonso is the greatest driver of all time, but get this, 2005 Alonso was not the same as Ferrari era Alonso. That's why I see Kimi taking the fight to Schumacher as more impressive than taking the fight to Alonso in 05. He had the faster car, but worse reliability, and ultimately that's why he lost in 2005. In 2006, the McLaren just simply wasn't fast at all, and nor was it extremely reliable, so just a bad car whatever way you look at it. So, of course that was a bit of a throwaway season for Raikkonen because of course he couldn't do much due to his car. He beat Montoya again, but since by that point it was already established that Kimi was the better driver, it wasn't necessarily all that impressive, so 2006 was just a bit of a waste. But in 2007, as we all know, Kimi Raikkonen won his first and only championship in his first season with Ferrari. Now this is where it gets interesting, because I'm sure many fans will agree with me when I say that 2007 wasn't Kimi's greatest season. Sure, it did go down to the wire, and all in all it was of course very entertaining, but not his greatest season. Just like Alonso's championship winning seasons in my opinion, Kimi's championship winning season was less impressive when compared to the years where he didn't manage to win but got so close. Potentially Raikkonen could have been a 3-time world champ, but isn't. And the fact that he's only a 2007 world champ I think makes a lot of people gloss over him when looking for some of the greatest drivers, because yes, I'll admit, Raikkonen was not the same driver after his championship. He was still quick, but not McLaren era Kimi. And that's just it. I don't think many drivers could go against McLaren Kimi Raikkonen in equal machinery and come out on top. That was his prime. Early in his career, sure. But again, I don't think many drivers, if any at all, could beat him in a fair fight at that point. And this is why I believe Kimi Raikkonen is underrated. People just don't seem to remember how blisteringly fast he was back in his prime. They'd rather remember him for his mediocre second half of his career and his funny interviews and forget just how good a driver this man was. But sadly, I think it will remain the case, not because people don't like Raikkonen, not at all. In fact, he's looked at quite fondly by current fans as a driver personality. But since it was quite a while ago, younger fans will likely always remember 2003 and 2005 as the years Michael Schumacher dominated and the year Fernando Alonso won his first world title. And they may not see what happened beyond that. And that was the purpose of this video, for people who may not understand what Kimi Raikkonen actually achieved in his career, and to maybe bring more attention to that and help more younger fans like myself who aren't able to witness his prime to appreciate his career a little more. Because like I said, I think Kimi's a little underrated because of that, and maybe some people would agree with me. But that was it guys. Do you agree? Do you not? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video at any point at all, please consider liking and subscribing to help with the growth of this channel. But really guys, thank you all so much for watching, and on that note, I hope you all have a blessed night, and I'll catch you all